right, I am here in Phoenix in a Hilton hotel. I had a fantastic time yesterday at Grand Canyon University. I gave a speech there, and the kids were absolutely great. I call them kids because I'm so old they look like kids to me, but they're students. Really nice university. It's just burgeoning, kind of a private Christian university. A couple of really interesting questions I will tell you about. So, you know, I'm at this university, and I obviously took questions. I think it'll be online on YouTube. You can probably look it up if you want. It was a really interesting exchange. And one kid said to me that his mother hated religion, and she kept telling him that religious people only do good to get a reward in heaven, whereas non-religious people just do good because that's the kind of people they are. And I was thinking, first of all, of course, the premise is untrue, that unreligious people do good just because they're them. But it really is like saying, you're a fake, you only exercise because you want to have a healthy lifestyle and look good, It's like you move toward God because that's where the joy is, and that's what I was kind of speaking about. I was speaking about the way that the press and everybody attack religion. And they basically have a way of manipulating religious people who oftentimes are not press savvy, media savvy, into condemning things, into always being into the position of saying no. Should you do this? No. Should you do that? No. And that's why, religious people always look like kind of they're the grim reaper, and not to mention, of course, Hollywood portraying them as the worst bigots and homophobes and all that stuff. And that's the basic. That was what my speech was about, is why they do that and why that's happening in our society and what we can do in answer to it. But it got me thinking about the fact, since normal, everyday Christian American values are so under attack, and anybody who holds them comes under this absolute onslaught from the left, it's good to observe the different ways that people handle them. I was watching Hannity yesterday get hammered for this Michael Cohen story. I'll talk about that. Watching Starbucks getting hammered for these two guys arrested. And I thought back to Chick-fil-a. You remember Chick-fil-a, where Dan Cathy, the guy who runs the place, CEO, came out against gay marriage. He's a Bible-believing Christian and doesn't believe in gay marriage, and he said so. Recently, the New Yorker, this is just a couple of days ago, the New Yorker ran a piece called Chick-fil-A's Creepy Infiltration of New York City by Dan Peppenbring, all right? And he says, New York has taken to Chick-fil-A. One of the Manhattan locations estimates that it sells a sandwich every 6 seconds, and the company has announced plans to open as many as a dozen more storefronts in the city. And yet, the brand's arrival here feels like an infiltration in no small part because of its pervasive Christian traditionalism. This is the New Yorker telling Chick-fil-A is infiltrating New York with its Christian traditionalism. Its headquarters in Atlanta. Listen to this description. This is supposed to go with horror or danger music. So think to yourself like bum 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 bum. Its headquarters in Atlanta are adorned with Bible verses and a statue of Jesus washing a disciple's feet. Bum 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 bum. Its stores close on Sunday. Bum 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 bum. Its CEO Dan Cathy has been accused of bigotry for using the company's charitable wing to fund anti-gay causes, including groups that oppose same-sex marriage. Bah, 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 bah. So anyway, and Cathy, there were protests. Remember, people were dressing up as chickens and holding signs, God hates hate and all this stuff. But Cathy stuck to his guns. He never changed his stance. But listen to him back. This is back in 2012. So listen to him back in 2012 talking about why he felt the way he did. This is cut number 2.
So we're concerned about this whole issue of the family and how we define the family. And so we just want to encourage, our nation that, hey, God sets the standard of what a family is. It's not going to come out of Washington. It's not going to come out of, some blog site. But whatever that definition of marriage that we can hang on to that really is going to represent the stability of our future, we need to be committed to it. I'm not a politician. I'm not a preacher. I'm just a businessman out here. But I just want to say that, hey, we ought to pray for our politicians. We ought to pray for those that are the thought leaders. We're really out here to sell chicken. But if someone asks us the question of how valid biblical values are, our testimony is they work. They really do work, regardless of the internet and all the things that are changing all around us. there are some things that haven't changed and never will change.
So he stood up to them. He never apologized. He never said anything. He said, these are our values. And people lined up around the block. Now, Chick-fil-A is, I think it's the third highest fast food venue if you include Starbucks and McDonald's and Starbucks and Chick-fil-A, which was not as big at the time, because he stood up to them. I mean, he didn't spit in their eye. He was kind about it. He was just insistent that this is where he stood. He did, over time, moderate his tone because he's a Christian man, right? He wasn't trying to spew hate. He wasn't trying to say, the Bible says there's no yes and no in Jesus. It's all yes. And he wasn't trying to condemn people. He was trying to describe what a family was, and according to the Bible, and what it isn't. And that is what he was trying to say. So later, they interviewed him just a few months ago, and he still maintains exactly what he maintained before. He's never lost his principles, but he moderated his tone a little bit to make it clearer what he was saying now that he had won the face-off. So here's that more recent quote.
I've been able to reach out to people in the gay community and sit down and have some incredibly wonderful dialogue with them. I tend to like to find the things that we can agree on. And as an example, a friend that I've gotten to know up in Charlotte, North Carolina, we find that this issue of bullying and saying demeaning things about people because of a whole wide range of different things that we can try to pick at each other. Washington does a pretty good job of it, focusing on the minors and things that we should, just let's move on to the important stuff. So I've been able to do that with this friend, and as a result, it's opened up a great dialogue. And together, we say, hey, we're going to be honorable and we're going to be respectful of everyone.
So that's a beautiful thing, right? The guy stands up for his principles. He wins the day because he doesn't back down. He's not panicked. He stays exactly where he is. People show up because they respect him, and some of them share their principles, and some of them, I'm sure, just like the chicken sandwiches. And then he can say, it's not about hatred. It's not about no. It is about yes. It is about welcoming people and being respectful of people. But it's also about not changing the definition of something just because the government says so when the Bible says something differently. That is a beautiful thing, in my opinion. Compare that now to what's happening at Starbucks in Philadelphia. But there's no point apologizing to the left because they're not out to get your apology. They're out to destroy you. And I think we saw Chick-fil-A. We should all follow that example. Stand by your principles. Stand fast. But if you feel that it is right to moderate your tone or say something about what you said, go ahead and do it once you've won, once your principles have lifted you above the protest.